The nonprofit sector is going through some pretty significant shifts right now. These include a focus on sustainability, measuring impact, and developing more strong leaders, among others. In this episode, Wayne Elsey shares about these, as well as suggestions for managing critics and leading a full, but not too busy life.
Welcome to the Social Good Instigators Podcast, where your host, Kirsten Bullock, interviews leaders of social entrepreneurship ventures who share what's working. Please add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello, Wayne. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kristen. Nice being here.
You're welcome. Wayne Elsey is the founder and CEO of Elsey Enterprises. Among his various independent brands, he's also the founder of and CEO of Funds to Orgs, which is a social enterprise that helps nonprofits, individuals, and organizations raise funds while helping to support micro-enterprise opportunities in developing nations. The Shoe Drive fundraising recently unveiled the 3.0 version of its new website, which you can see at fundstoorgs.com. And you can also follow Wayne's blog at notyourfatherscharity.com. And there's all sorts of resources that you can download there. Wayne, could you share a little bit more about your primary venture right now? I'm assuming that's Funds to Orgs.
Yeah, so we have multiple companies, and our focus is strategic counsel for nonprofits and for-profit companies. We've learned that about 70% of nonprofits or 70% that are going on today don't really have a solid strategic plan. So we help them formate that. And part of that strategic plan is fundraising, which we have a company called Funds to Orgs that works with nonprofits, schools, churches, civic groups around the country, raising much needed funds in a very non-traditional way. And then the last thing we do is really help nonprofits with branding and marketing and kind of pushing them in the right direction to get the word out there and to get people to follow them and to people to really support their cause and be champions of what they're doing.
Fantastic. And so there was an interesting story that I saw on your website about shoes. And about 10 years or so ago, if I understand it, you were working in the shoe business and had a revelation about needs that might need to be met.
Yeah, so I was a president and CEO of a shoe company here in the United States. And on December 26, 2004, I was sitting on the couch watching TV and I saw this single shoe float up on the shore. And quite honestly, it bothered me. I didn't really think about people needing shoes. I didn't think about they lost everything. But during the Asian tsunami, they lost everything. So I went to bed that night. I was restless. I woke up the next day. I said, you know what? You're a fool if you don't do something about this. You're in the shoe business. You saw that one shoe on the newscast, and, they need product. So I dialed around, sent some emails around, and literally within 6 weeks, I sent 250,000 pairs of shoes to Southeast Asia to help those folks out. So I was a corporate guy that basically, was living the life, working 100 hours a week and, managing a major business. And then I said, hey, this is not what it's all about. It's all about what you can do to use your resources, use your contacts to make a difference in somebody's life.
That's awesome. So that started your journey into the nonprofit world and to where you are now.
Exactly.
So I believe one of the things that's led you to is a strong belief in sustainability for nonprofit organizations and trying to build that in. What do you think is the biggest obstacle that organizations face as they start to think about sustainability?
Well, I think there's two big issues. I'm actually finishing a book that will be out pretty soon that talks about growth and sustainability. I think there's several things that if you really unpack that, what is missing? First of all, I think this industry is very polyester in their thinking. There is no box in my world. You can say, well, we got to think outside the box. Well, I don't believe there is a box. I think there's a new way of doing business. There's a new way of doing nonprofits where you have to look at things totally different than the way you did in the past. And I call it the polyester mentality, if you will. The next thing would be leadership. The nonprofit space needs strong leaders. They need leaders that are trained, that are developed, that know how to engage a team, that know how to execute a strategic plan, and know how to make things happen with the people that they're given around them.
So what do you think are the biggest obstacles to nonprofits finding those things?
I would say the biggest, it starts with the board. It starts with the board and the executive director really understanding what the scope of what they need is and then surrounding themselves with people that do that. But a lot of it could be, too, just the mentality. This is the way it's always been done. We can't worry about anything but overhead. We can't market anything, over X percent because we're going to get in trouble with GuideStar or whatever. But I think it really starts with a whole new, fresh approach of thinking. And that's by surrounding yourself with the right board members and surrounding yourself with the right team that can execute what you need to execute.
Mm-hmm. And one of our recent guests talked about, he's running an incubator in South Africa. And what they found is that they had to work with mindset along with the business skills in order to help these new ventures be successful. Do you think that's something that the nonprofit world would benefit from as well?
Absolutely. I think just, shaking the bushes, if you will, looking at things with a fresh set of eyes. I call it looking 30,000 feet in. The problem with a lot of businesses, nonprofit and for-profit, is their CEO and their board are really in that space every day. But if you can come in from the outside, looking outside in and get yourself away, and do that, you will look at your business totally different. Mm-hmm. For example, every day I meditate for an hour. Literally, I get away, I meditate, I do nothing. And if I had a crazy morning, like today I have, this afternoon, after I spend my hour, after I have my lunch, after I come back, I will be a different person. I'll be looking at things differently than I did this morning because I'm out of the fight, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So when did you first come to the realization that the nonprofit sector needed leadership and needed less what you called polyester thinking?
Yeah, I would say probably close to 2007, when I was forming a nonprofit and talking to folks out there and getting their advice and, how did you do it? And, and all I kept hearing was, well, your overhead can't be more than 2%. Mm-hmm. You really can't spend money in marketing, and I'm like, well, wait, Disney World spends billions of dollars in entertaining the kids. Why can't you spend money saving the kids, and then I actually connected with Dan Pallotta. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, whoa, this is like a breath of fresh air, dude. Where'd you come from?
Right.
And it's like, it was just very polyester. And I'm a guy, like today, I have on a Robert Graham shirt, Robert Graham shoes, cool pair of jeans, and my shirt's not tucked in. There's very nonprofit leaders or very for-profit leaders that dress like that. Well, this is a new day. I mean, I'm 52 years old, but my average staff here, my average team is in their 30s. So it's a new way of thinking. It's a fresh approach. It's not inside the box. It's tearing down the walls that have always been there and not doing like we've always done it. We have to do things differently, look at things differently, and act differently than we've ever done before.
Now, 2007, that was right before a pretty significant stock economy event. How did that impact what you were doing?
Personally, it about killed me. No, I mean, so it impacted because people tightened their purse strings up. People, and I call it back to basics. So if I feel like my company or I feel like an organization is really getting derailed, go back to what got you where you are. Mm-hmm. Stick to the basics. Block and tackle every day, and go back to the things that got you to the table, because if you can do those well, you can rebuild where you were and you can grow from there.
Absolutely. Now, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about getting started with a venture like yours?
I would say I'm a very simple guy. I barely made it through high school. I'm completely self-made. I would say do it. Hire people for your weaknesses. If you're not strong in marketing, hire a strong marketing person. Hire people and surround yourself with people that are better than you, that challenge you, that win, and that are winners. And I would say there's really no reason not to do it. If you want to go get your PhD, for example, you can do it. You just have to carve the time out. You have to plan ahead. You have to get things in motion and make that work. Well, okay, if you want to start a nonprofit, if you want to start a social enterprise, if you want to start a for-profit company, put yourself together a plan, surround yourself with the right people, and don't look back. Just do it and keep on getting up. Don't look back 10 years from now and say, God, I wish I would have done this. Do it. Nike talks about just do it, just do it.
And there's that great quote about the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. The next best time is now.
That's right.
No time like the present.
That's exactly right.
This idea to hire for weaknesses and growing leadership, really investing in the infrastructure, or what some people call the overhead of the organization, is kind of a shift in thinking for a lot of people. So have you gotten some pushback in suggesting these ideas to organizations, or have the people been pretty receptive to it?
No, definitely the first. I mean, definitely pushback. It's a new way of thinking. It's becoming more relevant in the marketplace. But this has been going on since probably 2007, 2008, and tons of pushback. I mean, I recently had a client here that I said, look, there are 65 charities within a 30-mile radius that do exactly what you do. Why do you want to do this? Why don't you talk to several of these people and consolidate? Why don't you talk to some of these people and see if you can do some, strategic alliances with them? But why do you want to start a charity that's going to be the same as these other 65 and literally not compete, but just beat your head against the wall? So that way of thinking has never been there. I believe nonprofits should consolidate. I believe that there's addition by subtraction in taking that 65 into maybe 15 or 20 or 30, whatever, and make bigger, powerful organizations that can do impact around the world.
That sounds good. Bigger impact.
Different way of thinking, right?
It is. And I'll bet you're getting some pushback on that.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love the news, and, I love the newspaper, and I love people saying I'm crazy and all this kind of stuff. Well, you know what? I may be crazy, but at the end of the day, it's about making a difference in people's life. It's about doing the right thing. It's about surrounding yourself, executing the concept, and building people that are game changers in whatever they do. And you don't see a lot of that. You see a lot of people, I can't do this because of whatever. Okay, yeah, you can. Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. If you can do anything but that and it makes a difference, try it out.
And so criticism, it sounds like you've come up with some pretty good ways to just kind of let it fall off. How have you been able to do that?
Well, I'm 6'4". I'm very broad-shouldered. I would say the best way I've done is there's a book out there called Hug Your Haters. I mean, everybody gets criticized. If you do something different, if you're outside the norm, or if you're doing something, quote unquote, you'll get criticized. And basically what I do is I answer the questions and I keep on getting up. I know in my heart I've done the right thing. I know that I slept well. I know that there's no bad intention. And providing all those things, you can put the pedal to the metal. You're always going to have critics. I mean, we're going through this major shift in the country, the last year with the new president. Right, wrong, or indifferent, he gets criticized about everything, or the last president gets criticized. And, God bless those guys, because they have a strategic direction to run the country that they have to execute, and they get criticized every time they turn around. And my feeling is just keep on getting up. People are going to talk. If you weren't doing anything, you're not going to get criticized. And always take the high road. I mean, I've said that thousands of times in my career. Always take the high road. Don't get in the gutter. Always take the high road. Michelle Obama actually stole my quote, when she gave her speech in Chicago. I'm joking by that, but you always take the high road. Do not get in the gutter. Stand strong. Stand firm. Treat people like you want to be treated, which is hard to find these days. And you'll be okay. Just keep on getting up. Take the high road, do the right thing, treat people like you want to be treated, and all will be well.
And so looking back over the last 10 years, what stands out as one of your biggest successes?
So, Kristen, I mentioned earlier about being in the fight every day, being in the office, being in the day-to-day of the business, right? And there was a time that I forgot that I'm not a customer, or I'm not a donor. And I rolled out a program, and it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because I looked at it from the eyes of the CEO, and I didn't look at it from the eyes of a consumer. So made a mistake, moved on, came out with a better plan, did a focus group, had a better idea, came up with it, implemented it, and it was a blaring success. The issue was I was too involved. I was too close, if you will, to the matter, and I didn't use my advice by getting outside counsel, by getting outside strategic direction, by getting another set of eyes looking in 30,000 feet, because I, quote unquote, knew it all,
So that's a big lesson.
Big lesson. When you give CPR, it's stop, look, and listen. I say that 100 times a day. Stop, look, and listen about everything that we do. Make sure that we are unpacking everything involved in it, because there's always going to be room for improvement. So get away, go meditate, look at things from the outside point of view and you'll see a different set of eyes. You have a different set of eyes looking at it.
And something that came up when we were talking before the recording was about busyness. And stop, look, and listen, that really conveys almost the same thing, to the importance of stepping back, of stopping being busy and starting being intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in control of my time. You're in control of your time. You told me you're getting a PhD and you're several weeks ahead on, or maybe months ahead on doing some of the projects you're working on, which is awesome. You made the conscious decision to do that. You didn't let busy, quote unquote, busyness get in your way. You said, okay, here's what I have to do. Here's what my end game is, and here's what I have to do to make it happen, because, Kristen, you're in control, and Wayne, you're in control of what you do, your time, your energy that you spend on whatever. So it's really just, okay, and you learn this the older you get. Like I said, I'm 52 and act like I'm 27, but at 52, I look at things a little bit differently than somebody else may look at it, because I'm like, okay, does this really matter? Is somebody going to die by not doing this? Is everything life or death? And just looking at it with that kind of lens, is okay, how does this impact you, Wayne? Are you healthy? Or do you have energy? How's your family life? How's your personal life, et cetera, et cetera? Are those things sacrificing because you're too, quote unquote, busy in the busyness of the world?
Mm-hmm. So you've learned how to say no.
It's hard, but yes, I turn more opportunities away than I do say yes to, because of that reason. Because there's certain things that are very much important in my life that may not have been important 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but you look at things differently as you age and mature.
Mm-hmm. Well, Wayne, thanks so much for joining us. Before we close, do you have any words of encouragement or inspiration for our listeners?
Yes, I do. Matter of fact, I've written a book about you matter. When's the last time somebody told you mattered? You matter. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it, and don't let the world get you down. Those have been part of my DNA since I was 16, almost committing suicide, until somebody told me those three things. And I mattered. I can do anything I want if I put my mind to it, and I will not let people or the world get me down. So my advice to you is take those words, use those words, share those words, and make them part of your DNA.
That's fantastic. Well, would you mind sharing quickly the website where people can get more information about what you're up to?
Yeah, so the website for the information is notyourfatherscharity.com. That's notyourfatherscharity.com, exactly how it says. And then funds.org, if you need to raise money, it's funds2orgs, funds2orgs.com.
Great. Well, thanks again, Wayne, for joining us today.
Thanks, Kristen. Enjoy the time.
You're welcome. And thanks to all our listeners for everything you do to make the world a better place.
Thanks for listening to the Social Good Instigators podcast with Kirsten Bullock. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll check out our prior episodes, and that you'll pass along our web address, socialgoodinstigators.com, to your friends and colleagues in the social good sector.